Welcome to Aging with Wisdom. When people reach the end of their lives, they rarely regret the things they did. More often, they regret the things they didn't do, the words they never said, the love they never showed, the time they never took. Over the years, caregivers, nurses, and those who sit at the bedsides of the dying hear the same confessions over and over. 10 regrets return again and again, whispered with trembling voices and heavy hearts. But these regrets are not just stories of sorrow. They are lessons for the living, for you and me. While there is still time to change, still time to live more fully and more freely. So, I invite you to slow down. Find a quiet place. Take a deep breath. Imagine yourself many years from now, looking back at your life. What will you regret? What will you wish you had done differently? Over the next 2 hours, we'll walk through these 10 biggest regrets people share at the end of life. We'll take our time, we'll reflect. We'll explore not just what these regrets are, but what they teach us about living well. Because wisdom is only useful when it's lived. Let's begin with the first regret, perhaps the most common of all. Regret 1. I wish I had lived true to myself. Again and again, people say, I wish I had lived a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. This regret cuts deep because it's about authenticity, about betraying our own hearts. I once knew a man who wanted nothing more than to be an artist. His passion was painting, but his parents dreamed of a different future, a respectable career in law. Wanting to please them, he set aside his brushes, his colors, his sketches, and he pursued their dream instead of his own. He became a successful lawyer. He had the house, the car, the admiration of his peers, but deep inside, he felt empty. Decades passed. At the age of 70, when his career was long behind him, he picked up a paintbrush again. His hands trembled, but his soul rejoiced. He told me once, with tears in his eyes, I wish I hadn't waited so long. This is the tragedy of living for others. We win their approval, but we lose ourselves. Why does this happen? Why do so many people betray their own hearts? Sometimes it's fear. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. Sometimes it's loyalty to family or culture. We don't want to disappoint those who love us. Sometimes it's the belief that our own dreams are selfish, impractical, or too risky. But here is the truth. The pain of disappointing others fades. The pain of disappointing yourself lingers for a lifetime. Let's reflect on this for a moment. Think about your own life. Are you living for yourself or for someone else's script? Did you choose your career, your lifestyle, your path because it's what you wanted or because it's what someone else expected? There is wisdom in sacrifice, yes. There is wisdom in responsibility. But there is also wisdom in honoring the unique calling that whispers within you. Living true to yourself doesn't always mean quitting your job or abandoning your responsibilities. It may mean something quieter. It may mean carving out time each week for what you love. It may mean taking one small step toward a dream you've buried. It may mean saying no, gently but firmly, when expectations don't align with your truth. Here are 3 ways to begin living true to yourself today. 1. Listen to your inner voice before you listen to the crowd. Spend 10 minutes each morning in silence. Ask yourself, what do I truly want today? Not what the world wants from me, but what I want for me. 2. Take one step toward a forgotten dream. If you once loved music, pick up that guitar again. If you loved writing, put words on a page. If you loved adventure, plan a small trip. Dreams don't die, they wait. 3. Practice saying no without guilt. Every time you say yes to something that isn't you, you are saying no to yourself. Protect your authenticity. Let me leave you with this reflection. Imagine yourself at the end of your life, looking back. What will matter more, the applause of others, or the peace of knowing you lived your own truth? As one wise soul once said, "The greatest prison people live in is the fear of what others think." Don't betray your heart. Don't postpone your truth. Life is too short to live someone else's dream. Regret too? I wish I hadn't worked so hard. At the end of life, almost no one says, "I wish I had spent more time at the office," but countless people whisper, "I wish I hadn't worked so hard." This regret is not about the value of work itself. Work gives meaning, purpose, and provision. But the regret comes from imbalance, from the belief that by working endlessly, we were providing for our families, when in truth, our families longed for our presence more than our paychecks. I remember a father who was proud of never missing a day of work in 30 years. He provided a beautiful house, private schools, vacations, all the things he thought his family wanted. But in his final years, he confessed with tears, "I gave them everything except myself. What they wanted most was me." He missed birthdays, school plays, lazy Sunday mornings, and family dinners. His children grew up surrounded by comfort but not by presence. And now, those moments could never be recovered. Why does this happen? Part of it is cultural. We live in a world that glorifies busyness, that tells us our worth is measured by our productivity. We are praised when we hustle, when we sacrifice rest for overtime, when we grind until exhaustion. Part of it is fear. Fear of not having enough, fear of falling behind, fear of losing status. So we trade hours for dollars, and then trade those dollars for possessions that only distract us further. But here's the wisdom. Wealth can be rebuilt. Time cannot. Ask yourself, if you had just one more year to live, would you spend it chasing one more promotion or laughing one more evening with your family? The quietly wise understand this. They still work, but they protect their time. They create boundaries. They measure success not by income alone, but by the memories they are creating along the way. Here are 3 practices that can help you avoid this regret. 1. Schedule family first, work second. Put birthdays, dinners, and time with loved ones on your calendar before you schedule meetings. Treat them as sacred appointments. 2. Practice presence, not just proximity. Being in the same room is not enough. Put down the phone, close the laptop, look into the eyes of those you love. Listen deeply. 3. Redefine success. Instead of asking, "How much did I earn this year?" ask, "How much did I live this year?" Success is not just what you build. It is who you become while building it. Let me share a story that gives hope. I once met a man who realized in his 40 seconds that his children were growing up fast. He had already missed much of their early years. Instead of sinking into regret, he made a change. He left a demanding corporate job for a simpler one that paid less but gave him more time. At first, he worried his children would miss the luxuries. But years later, his daughter said, "Dad, I don't remember what car you drove. I remember you were there when I needed you." That is wealth. That is success. So take this regret as a warning and as a gift. Work is important. Providing is noble. But no paycheck is worth the cost of losing your family's memories. When your final day comes, it won't be the hours logged at the office that you hold on to. It will be the laughter, the dinners, the walks, the embraces. As one wise saying goes, don't get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life. Later. So pause, rebalance, protect your time, because in the end, people won't remember how hard you worked. They'll remember how deeply you loved. Regret 3. I wish I had expressed my feelings. One of the deepest and most painful regrets people carry to the end of life is this: I wish I had expressed my feelings. So many of us keep our emotions bottled up. We fear rejection. We fear conflict. We fear being vulnerable. And so, the words that matter most, "I love you," "I'm sorry," "I forgive you," remain unsaid. But silence creates distance, and unspoken words often become heavy regrets. I once heard the story of a woman who loved her best friend her entire life. She never confessed her feelings, afraid it might ruin their friendship. When her friend married someone else, she carried that quiet grief for decades. At the end of her life, she whispered, "I wish I had told him. Even if it changed nothing, at least he would have known." Another man carried anger for years after a falling out with his brother. They lived in the same city but never spoke. When his brother died suddenly, the man wept. Not just for the loss, but for the words he had never said. "I forgive you. I miss you. I love you, brother." This is the tragedy of silence. We believe we are protecting ourselves, but in truth, we are building prisons around our hearts. Why do people hide their feelings? Sometimes it is pride, we don't want to appear weak. Sometimes it is fear that our love won't be returned, or our apology won't be accepted. Sometimes it is habit, we grew up in families where feelings were never spoken, so we never learned how. But here's the wisdom. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is strength. To say "I love you" risks rejection, but it also opens the door to connection. To say "I forgive you" risks being hurt again, but it also frees you from the poison of bitterness. To say "I'm hurting" risks discomfort, but it allows healing to begin. Let's pause for a moment of reflection. Who in your life needs to hear words that you've been holding back? Is there someone you love, but have never told? Is there someone you hurt, but have never apologized to? Is there someone you've been angry with, but long to forgive? Don't wait. Tomorrow is not promised. Here are 3 simple practices to help you begin expressing your feelings. 1. Start small. Say thank you more often. Say I appreciate you. Notice how it feels to speak kindness aloud. 2. Write it down. If speaking feels hard, write a letter. Even if you never send it, the act of writing clears your heart. 3. Choose courage over comfort. Remember, regret lasts longer than rejection. Let me share a story of redemption. There was a father who struggled to express love to his children. He provided, he worked hard, but he rarely spoke words of affection. In his later years, he realized his silence had built a distance between him and his son. One day, he finally broke the silence. Through trembling lips, he said, "I love you. I am proud of you." His son, grown but still longing for those words, embraced him and wept. Years of distance melted in a single moment of truth. This is the power of spoken feelings. They heal, they connect, they transform. Don't wait until it's too late. Speak your love. Speak your gratitude. Speak your truth. Because at the end of life, people rarely regret saying too much. They regret saying nothing at all. Regret 4. I wish I had stayed in touch with friends. One of the quietest yet most heartbreaking regrets people share at the end of life is this: I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. As life grows busy, friendships often fade. We assume we'll reconnect someday. We tell ourselves we'll call when things settle down, that we'll meet up when schedules align. But too often, that day never comes. On their deathbeds, many people whisper with sadness, "I wish I had called. I wish I had visited. I wish I had made more time." I remember the story of 2 friends who had grown inseparable in their youth. They laughed, traveled, shared secrets. But as careers and families grew, their paths drifted apart. Decades passed in silence. At 75, They finally reconnected, and they laughed like no time had passed. Yet behind the laughter was grief. Grief for the decades lost, the birthdays missed, the countless small moments that could never be relived. Why does this regret happen so often? Life demands so much of us: work, family, responsibilities. Friendships are not urgent, so they are often neglected. Unlike careers or obligations, friendships don't come with deadlines or reminders. And so, slowly, quietly, they slip away. But here's the truth. Friendships are not luxuries. They are treasures. They are sources of joy, resilience, and belonging. Studies even show that strong social connections add years to our lives, while loneliness shortens them. Let's pause for a moment. Think of a friend you've lost touch with, someone who once mattered deeply, but who now feels distant. What stopped you from calling? Was it busyness? Pride? The assumption that there would always be more time? The end of life teaches us this. Time is shorter than we think. If you miss someone, reach out. Even a simple message, "I was thinking of you," can reopen doors thought long closed. Here are 3 practices to nurture your friendships. 1. Call one friend each week. Put it on your calendar as if it were a meeting. 2. Celebrate their milestones. Birthdays, promotions, even small victories. A simple text can mean the world. 3. Plan rituals of connection. A monthly coffee, a yearly trip, or even a shared tradition like Sunday calls. Rituals keep bonds alive. Let me share another story of hope. I once knew a woman who, after retiring, realized her circle of friends had all but disappeared. Instead of surrendering to loneliness, she began reaching out. She sent letters, made phone calls, reconnected through social media. Slowly, her friendships bloomed again. In her last years, her house was filled with laughter, visits, and companionship. She said, "I thought it was too late, but I learned friendship can always be renewed." That's the gift of friendship. It waits patiently. It can be rekindled, even after decades, but only if we make the effort. At the end of life, possessions fade, achievements are forgotten, but the memory of a friend's laughter, a friend's presence, remains vivid. So don't wait. Reach out, make the call, send the message, because one day you may whisper, "I wish I had stayed in touch." But today, you still have the chance to change that story. Regret 5. I wish I had let myself be happier. One of the most surprising regrets people share at the end of life is this: "I wish I had let myself be happier." Think about those words carefully. Let myself. This regret isn't about being denied happiness by circumstance. It's about realizing that happiness was always within reach, but never embraced. So many people postpone joy. They say, "I'll be happy when I get the promotion," or "I'll be happy when the children grow up," or "I'll be happy when I retire," when life finally slows down. But then retirement comes, and they are too tired, too ill, or too weighed down by regret to enjoy it. And they whisper, "I should have let myself be happier along the way." I remember the story of a man who spent his entire career chasing success. He rose quickly, always seeking the next title, the next salary increase. Each time, he told himself happiness was just around the corner, but the corner kept moving. When he finally retired, he admitted, "I spent my life chasing what I thought would make me happy. I should have enjoyed what I already had." Contrast that with the story of a woman who was diagnosed with a terminal illness in her 50s. Instead of surrendering to despair, she chose joy deliberately. She laughed every day, celebrated small things, savored time with loved ones. She said, "I can't control how long I live, but I can control how fully I live." Her joy was contagious. Even in her final days, she brought happiness to others simply by choosing it for herself. So why do so many of us postpone happiness? Some of us believe happiness has to be earned, achieved, or purchased. Others believe happiness is selfish, that duty and sacrifice come first. Still others fall into perfectionism. I can't be happy until everything is right. But life is never perfect. And happiness is not a destination. It is a decision, a daily practice. Let's pause here. Think of your own life. Are you postponing happiness? Are you waiting for some future moment, a raise, a milestone, a retirement, before you give yourself permission to feel joy? Here's the wisdom. Happiness doesn't come from grand events. It comes from ordinary moments, a meal with loved ones, a walk in the sun, a shared laugh, a quiet evening of peace. Here are 3 ways to begin letting yourself be happier today. 1. Practice gratitude. Each day, write down 3 things you're thankful for. Gratitude turns what we have into enough. 2. Choose joy in small things. Don't wait for big milestones. Dance in the kitchen, savor your morning coffee, laugh at a silly joke. 3. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. There will always be problems, imperfections, and challenges. Don't let them rob you of today's joy. I once heard someone say, happiness is not the absence of problems, but the ability to deal with them with a smile. So don't wait. Don't postpone. Happiness isn't something you chase. It's something you allow. At the end of life, people don't regret being too happy. They regret all the times they refuse to let themselves be. So today, give yourself permission. Choose joy. Let yourself be happy not someday, but now. Have river and taste. Regret 6. I wish I had forgiven sooner. One of the heaviest regrets people carry into their final days is this. I wish I had forgiven sooner. Bitterness is a burden. Anger feels powerful in the moment, but over the years, it steals joy, peace, and even health. At the end, many people realize the years they lost holding grudges were years they could never reclaim. I once heard the story of 2 sisters who stopped speaking over an inheritance dispute. They lived in the same town but avoided each other for 20 years. In the final weeks of her life, one sister whispered, I wish I had made peace sooner. We wasted 2 decades. Those years could have been filled with shared holidays, laughter, and support, but pride and pain built walls between them. By the time reconciliation came, time had already run out. Why do we struggle to forgive? Sometimes it's pride. We don't want to admit we were hurt, or we want the other person to make the first move. Sometimes it's fear. We believe forgiving means excusing the hurt or opening ourselves to being hurt again, and sometimes it's misunderstanding. We think forgiveness is about the other person, but forgiveness is really about us. Here is the wisdom. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is not excusing. Forgiveness is choosing freedom over poison. When you forgive, you release yourself from the chains of resentment. You give your heart room to heal. Let's pause here. Think of someone in your own life who has hurt you. Does their memory still sting? Do you still replay the wound in your mind? What would it feel like to finally let it go? Here are 3 practices that can help you move toward forgiveness. 1. Write a forgiveness letter. You don't have to send it. Simply write out what hurt you, how it made you feel, and then release it by writing, I choose to forgive. 2. Separate the person from the pain. People are more than their mistakes. See the hurtful action for what it is, without letting it define the whole person. 3. Forgive for yourself, not for them. Forgiveness may not change the past, but it changes your future. Let me share another story of hope. A man carried bitterness against his father for decades. His father had been harsh, distant, and unkind. In his later years, the man decided to forgive, even without an apology. He said, "I realized my father may never change, but I don't want his choices to keep stealing my peace." When he forgave, a weight lifted. He slept better. He laughed more. His relationships with his own children deepened because he was no longer living under the shadow of anger. This is the gift of forgiveness. It frees not just relationships, but generations. At the end of life, people rarely regret forgiving. They regret holding on too long. So forgive quickly. Don't let bitterness steal decades you can never get back. As one wise saying goes, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Let go. Set yourself free. Because when the end comes, peace will matter more than pride. Regret 7. I wish I had taken more risks. At the end of life, another powerful regret often emerges. I wish I had taken more risks. When people look back, they don't usually regret the chances they took, even the ones that failed. They regret the ones they never dared to try. I once heard the story of a woman who dreamed of opening a bakery. She loved baking. Her kitchen was always full of sweet smells. Her family and friends adored her creations. But she chose a safe office job instead. She told herself it was practical, predictable, the smart thing to do. Years later, she confessed, "I wonder what could have been. I wish I had tried." Contrast her story with another man who dreamed of starting a business. He took the leap. His first attempt failed miserably. He lost money, pride, even some friends who doubted him. But he tried again. And the second time, it worked. He built something he was proud of, something that supported his family and gave him freedom. In his old age, he said, "I don't regret the failures. I would have regretted never trying." That's the difference between regret and risk. Failure hurts for a moment. Regret lasts a lifetime. Why do so many people play it safe? Fear, mostly. Fear of rejection. Fear of poverty. Fear of looking foolish. We cling to comfort zones because they feel safe. But comfort zones are prisons dressed as sanctuaries. They keep us alive, but not truly living. At the end of life, people realize that risks don't always succeed, but they always teach. They bring growth, adventure, and stories worth telling. Let's pause here. Think about your own life. Is there something you've always wanted to do but haven't? Write a book? Travel somewhere far? Start a business? Say something important? What stops you? Here's the wisdom. The best time to take a risk was years ago. The second best time is now. Here are 3 steps to help you step into courage. 1. Start small. You don't have to leap off a cliff. Take 1 step. If you want to write a page. If you want to travel, plan a weekend trip. Small risks build courage for bigger ones. 2. Reframe failure. Instead of seeing it as shame, see it as a teacher. Ask, what did I learn? Not, how did I lose? 3. Ask the right question. Instead of, what if I fail? Ask, what if I never try? I once met a retired man who had traveled to over 50 countries. When asked why he traveled so much, he said, "Because I didn't want my rocking chair years to be filled with the words, 'I wish I had.'" That is the essence of risk, not recklessness, but courage. When your final day comes, you will not count the safe choices that kept you comfortable. You will remember the moments you stepped out, the adventures you embraced, the dreams you dared to chase. So don't wait until the end to whisper, "I wish I had taken more risks." Take them now, while there is still time. Regret 8. I wish I had shown more love. At the end of life, people don't talk about their resumes, their possessions, or their achievements. Again and again, they talk about love, or more often, the love they regret not showing. This regret sounds like, I wish I had hugged more. I wish I had said, I love you more often. I wish I had shown more tenderness in the small daily ways. I once heard the story of a man who admitted that he rarely expressed affection to his wife of 50 years. He loved her deeply, but he assumed she knew. On his deathbed, he said with tears, I wish I had told her more. I wish I had shown her every day. Another story. A grandmother who always cooked, cleaned, and worked tirelessly for her family. She thought love was obvious in her actions, so she rarely spoke it. When asked near the end what she wished, she said softly, I wish I had said the words more. Love deserves to be spoken. Love is not meant to be hidden. Love is meant to be given, spoken, shown, embodied in small gestures. Yet many of us hold back. Why? Sometimes it's fear of vulnerability. Saying I love you feels exposing. Sometimes it's habit. We assume people know how we feel. Sometimes it's pride. We don't want to appear too soft, too emotional. But here is the wisdom. Love unexpressed is love wasted. Love only matters when it is given away. Let's pause here. Think of the people closest to you. Do they know beyond a shadow of a doubt how much you love them? Have you told them? Have you shown them recently? Here are 3 ways to start showing more love today. 1. Say it. Speak the words I love you often. Don't wait for special occasions. 2. Show it in small gestures. A hug, a kind note, an act of service, or even just listening fully. 3. Be generous with affection. Love costs nothing but gives everything. Love doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. It lives in the simple things. Holding hands, making eye contact, sharing laughter, forgiving quickly. I once knew a woman who was remembered not for her career, but for how she made people feel. Everyone who spoke at her funeral said the same thing. She made me feel loved. What greater legacy could there be? At the end of life, people do not regret showing too much love. They regret showing too little. So don't wait. Say it more. Show it more. Let the people around you feel it every day, because when the end comes, it will not be the size of your bank account that matters. It will be the size of your heart. Regret 9. I wish I had cared less about what others think. One of the most common and quiet regrets people confess near the end is this. I wish I had cared less about what others think. So many lives are shaped not by inner truth, but by external judgment. People choose careers to impress, not to fulfill. They dress for approval. They hide their real opinions, their real selves, their real dreams, just to avoid gossip, criticism, or rejection. I once heard the story of a woman who desperately wanted to be a teacher, but her family thought the profession was too modest. To please them, she pursued a business degree and spent decades in a career that never brought her joy. At the end of her life, she said quietly, I lived for their applause, but never for my own peace. Another man shared that he never traveled, never danced, never even wore the clothes he liked because he was always afraid of what people might say. He said, I lived in a prison of their opinions, and the saddest part is, most of them weren't even thinking about me. That's the great irony. We spend so much energy worrying about what others think, and yet most people are too focused on their own lives to think about us at all. Why does this happen? From childhood, we are trained to seek approval from parents, teachers, peers. Society teaches us to fit in, to be acceptable, to avoid shame. But if we never outgrow this need, we spend our entire lives as actors on a stage, performing for an audience that isn't even paying attention. Here's the wisdom. Freedom begins the moment you stop living for applause. Let's pause here. Ask yourself honestly, How much of your life is truly yours? How many of your choices are guided by your own heart, and how many are shaped by the imagined opinions of others? Here are 3 practices to help you break free from the prison of approval. 1. Ask the right question. When making a choice, don't ask, "What will they think?" Ask, "What will I think of myself if I don't?" 2. Embrace imperfection. Let yourself be flawed, human, real. Perfection is a mask. Authenticity is freedom. 3. Live by your values, not their opinions. Write down your core values: kindness, courage, creativity, whatever matters most to you. Let those guide your choices, not shifting social approval. I once met a woman who, after decades of living for others, finally decided to be herself. She wore the clothes she loved, pursued hobbies that made her happy, spoke her mind more openly. She said, "At first, people judged me, but eventually, they respected me. And most importantly, I respected myself." This is the gift of authenticity. Even if others disapprove, you gain the peace of knowing you lived honestly. At the end of life, people don't wish they had fit in more. They wish they had stood out more, lived more boldly, been more true to themselves. So don't wait. Stop performing. Stop apologizing for who you are. Because when the end comes, the crowd will fade, but your soul will remain, and it deserves the freedom of authenticity. Regret 10. I wish I had spent more time with the people who mattered. The deepest regret of all, the one spoken most often with tears, is this: I wish I had spent more time with the people who mattered. At the end, people don't ask for their trophies, their paychecks, or their possessions. They ask for faces. They ask for voices. They ask for the presence of the ones they love. I remember the story of a man who worked tirelessly, chasing promotions and wealth. He said, "I thought I was building a future for my family, but in truth, I was missing the present with them." When his children were grown and gone, he realized the small moments, bedtime stories, dinners, conversations were gone too. His wealth could not buy them back. Another woman shared that she spent years chasing social approval, attending events, climbing ladders, collecting acquaintances, but neglecting her aging parents. By the time she slowed down, it was too late. She said softly, "I would trade every achievement for just one more afternoon with them." Why does this regret cut so deeply? Because in our final days, we realize that relationships are what truly matter. Love, connection, presence. These are life's real wealth. Work, possessions, status, they fade. But the memory of holding someone's hand, of laughing together, of simply being present, that endures. Let's pause here. Imagine today were your last. Who would you want beside you? Who are the people who truly matter? And have you given them the time they deserve? Here are 3 practices to help you spend more time with those who matter. 1. Prioritize people, not things. When faced with a choice between work and loved ones, choose them more often. 2. Create rituals of connection. Weekly family dinners, Sunday walks, bedtime stories, small traditions build lifelong memories. 3. Be fully present. Put away the phone. Look into their eyes. Listen deeply. Presence is the purest form of love. Let me share a story of redemption. A grandfather who had spent most of his life distant from his family began, late in life, to invite his grandchildren over every week. At first, it felt awkward, but slowly, those evenings became treasured memories. He passed away knowing he had, at least in his final years, chosen what mattered most. His grandchildren still speak of him with warmth because he gave them the gift of time. This is the wisdom. When all is said and done, we are remembered not for what we built, but for how we loved. At the end of life, people rarely say, "I wish I had made more money." They say, "I wish I had made more memories with the people who mattered most." So don't wait. Hug your children. Call your parents. Spend time with your partner, your siblings, your friends. Sit with them. Laugh with them. Be with them. Because in the end, the greatest wealth is not in what we have, but in who we have. We have walked together through the 10 greatest regrets people share at the end of life. Each regret was not just sorrow, but a lesson. A whisper from those who have gone before us, reminding us what truly matters. Let's pause and remember them. I wish I had lived true to myself. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I had expressed my feelings. I wish I had stayed in touch with friends. I wish I had let myself be happier. I wish I had forgiven sooner. I wish I had taken more risks. I wish I had shown more love. I wish I had cared less about what others think. I wish I had spent more time with the people who mattered. 10 regrets. 10 truths. 10 invitations to live differently. What do they teach us? They teach us that authenticity is more important than approval. That presence is more valuable than productivity. That words spoken in love heal more than silence. That friendships and family are treasures to be guarded. That happiness is not earned but chosen. That forgiveness frees us more than anger ever could. That courage brings stories, while fear brings regrets. That love must be shown, not just felt. That the opinions of others fade, but the peace of self-respect endures. And above all, that time with loved ones is the true measure of a life well lived. So let me ask you, not at the end of life, but right now, which of these spoke to your heart? Which regret do you feel tugging at you, warning you not to repeat it? Perhaps you've been working too hard, missing the laughter at the dinner table. Perhaps you've been silent about feelings that need to be spoken. Perhaps you've let friendships drift, or happiness wait, or grudges grow heavy. But here is the hope. It is not too late. Regrets are not just endings. They are beginnings. They are guides, pointing us toward a better way, if only we have the courage to listen. You don't have to reach the end to learn these lessons. You can begin today. So live true to yourself. Work less, love more. Speak your feelings. Call your friends. Choose happiness now. Forgive quickly. Take risks. Show love daily. Care less about opinions. And above all, spend time with those who matter. Because in the end, it won't be the things you owned or the titles you held that define your life. It will be the people you loved, the memories you made, and the truth you lived. Take a deep breath with me now. Imagine yourself many years from today, looking back on your life. Do you see regrets, or do you see a life fully lived? The choice begins now. This is Aging with Wisdom. Thank you for joining me in this reflection. If any of these lessons touched your heart, I invite you to share them in the comments, with a friend, or simply by living them out, because your wisdom, your story, your love might be the reminder someone else needs today. Until next time, live well, love deeply, and make sure regret does not have the final word.